美仪呢？玉骨不见了。没在 ，OK。那个玉骨呢？Okay. So let's look at page 233, the layers of skin. Now, the skin comprises of two main layers, the epidermis and the dermis. Okay, so when we're learning the skin, the thing that we need to know is your dermis and your epidermis. Okay, so epidermis is your first outermost layer of your skin. This is the epithelial tissue that covers our body. It is a thin protective covering with many nerve endings. The epidermis is composed of 5 layers of strata. Strata means many layers. Stratum means one layer. Okay, so the uppermost surface layer is the stratum corneum. Okay, your epidermis has 5 layers. So the very first layer is your stratum corneum, then stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, and the bottom layer is the stratum germinativum, which is also called the basal layer. Okay, now your very first layer of your skin, which is called the stratum corneum, looks like this. Okay, and then so intercellular means between the cells. Transcellular means across through the cells. So intercellular means what? It travels through the holes. Okay, it travels through the holes. That's called intercellular. Transcellular means it goes through the cell. So please remember this word, okay? Intercellular is through the channels, okay? Transcellular means it goes into the cells and through the cells. 请记住这2个字 ，intercellular 是经过那些穿梭那些洞，叫做 intercellular。transcellular 是直接经过细胞。OK， 记住这2个字。Let's go to the next page, 234. Now, I need you to understand this one here. The epidermis has 5 layers. Okay, the layers are called strata. The very first layer is stratum. Stratum means 1 layer. The first layer is stratum corneum, or it is called the horny layer or horny cells. 第一层，表皮层的第一层有5层，第一层叫做 stratum corneum， 或者叫做 horny cells or horny layer. Second layer, stratum lucidum, is the clear cells. Then followed by stratum granulosum, which is the grainy cells. Then stratum spinosum, which is the spiny cells. And stratum germinativum, which is the germination of the growth layer. The bottom layer, which is the basal layer, is the layer where new cells produce. 我们的表皮层有5层，最底层这一层呢，就是皮肤细胞重生。皮肤细胞是从那第5层生长出来。Okay? Now, keratinocytes. Keratinocytes is made up of keratin, which is a protein. Okay, so keratinocytes is 95% of your epidermis. So 95% of your epidermis is keratinocytes, okay, which is made up of a protein called keratin. These cells contain both proteins and lipids. So surrounding the cells in the epidermis are lipids which protect the cell from water loss and dehydration. Okay. Keratin is a fibrous protein that provides resiliency and protection to the skin. Now, the word resiliency is this one here. Resiliency.
弹性.
Okay. So that's why our skin, when you touch it, it bounces back. That's the resiliency. Okay. It bounces back. That's the resiliency. 弹性，我哋摸你的皮肤的时候，它有弹性。Okay. Keratin is found in all layers of the epidermis. Hot keratin is the protein found in hair and nails. Okay, so our skin is 95% keratinocytes, which is made up of protein, and keratin is found in throughout our whole skin, the first layer. Okay, and hot keratin is the hair and the nails. Keratinocytes have many different functions and go through as they move up the layers to the top layer of the stratum corneum. Stem cells are the mother cells that divide in the basal layer, forming new daughter cells. These daughter cells moves up through the layers before becoming hardened conocytes of the stratum corneum. Keratinocytes and other cells protect the epidermis. Other cells in the epidermis include melanocytes. Now, the melanocyte is the cell that produce melanin. 这个 melanocyte 就是那个细胞出产黑色素的，叫做 melanocytes. Okay? Immune cells is the one that produces the T cells, white blood cells, okay? That protects your body from foreign invasion. Okay? 这是你的免疫系统的细胞。And Merkel cells is your nerve receptacle. Okay? Merkel cells 就是你的那个神经线细胞。Okay? Now, the first layer, so this one here means, what does it mean? Let me show you a video, okay?
Consisting of a single row of epithelial cells, which constantly divide to produce new cells, the keratinocyte accounts for 70 to 80% of the cellular population of the epidermis. There is an unlimited resource of keratinocyte stem cells, and this cell continues to function despite its age and cellular damage. Keratinocytes are programmed to undergo an event called terminal differentiation, and this event is a type of which slowly takes place as the keratinocyte moves up through all layers of the epidermis to the stratum corneum. During this differentiation cycle, the keratinocyte makes multiple changes in both its appearance and function. whilst forming the many lines of skin barrier defense of the epidermis. This video follows the journey of the keratinocyte from mitosis through the 5 layers of the epidermis to its final act of desquamation. The basal cell layer responsible for cellular regeneration is situated above the dermal-epidermal junction, separating the epidermis from the dermis. As the keratinocytes of the basal layer move upward into the spinosum layer, the cell shape changes from cuboidal to polyhedral. Here, the spinous and intercellular junctions called desmosomes become more pronounced through cell-to-cell adhesion and by tethering keratinocyte cells to one another. The integrity of these junctions and epidermal strength from the basal cell layer all the way to the granular layer is achieved by these desmosomes. It is in the stratum spinosum layer that the keratinocyte plays one of its primary roles in skin cell barrier defense, through a direct interaction with the melanocyte to provide protection for the cell nucleus. When melanosomes release into the extracellular space of the spinosum layer, they are picked up by the keratinocytes using the endocytosis method and PAR2 receptor. After the keratinocyte receives the melanosomes, the keratinocyte continues the journey upward through the layers of the epidermis towards the stratum corneum to desquamate.
Let me show you another one.
They say that beauty is only skin deep. But did you know that the outermost layer of your skin is actually composed of entirely dead cells? I have no idea what's beautiful about dead tissue, but in this video, we'll seek to figure that out. We'll talk about the different layers of skin. As you can see here, there are many layers to this skin, and there are 3 different sets of layers that we can talk about. There's the epidermis, which is the first 5 layers, the dermis, which is the next 2 layers, and the last part, the subcutaneous tissue, or the hypodermis. In this video, we'll start by talking about the most superficial part of your skin, and that is the epidermis. And I'm sure your friends have told you before that your epidermis is showing. The epidermis is the topmost layer of skin, and itself is comprised of 5 layers, or as we call them, strata. So 5 layers or strata, and each strata or stratum has its own important characteristics. So we'll start from the bottom and talk about the deepest or bottommost layer of the epidermis, and that's known as the stratum basale, or the basal layer. The stratum basale sits right above the dermis and is the place where we first generate what are called keratinocytes. And so I'm drawing a whole bunch of keratinocytes right here. These are keratinocytes. And in fact, the stratum basale has multiple layers of keratinocytes. And as you might recall, cyte just means cell. So what does keratino mean? Well, it comes from a protein or an intermediate filament that's called cytokeratin. Cytokeratin, which is something we first start making in the stratum basale. Sometimes it's just called keratin. And it helps give our skin its tough outer layer when we get to the top, as we'll talk about in a minute. And in other animals, keratin actually is the main ingredient for things like horns, or even hooves. So it's definitely the tough stuff that help protect our skin. And another very important thing to know about the stratum basale is this is where we have very rapid cell division. Rapid cell division because this is the bottom layer of our epidermis. So cells are made here and slowly they move upwards. Another thing that's important about the stratum basale is this is where we get our skin color from. So there are components of the stratum basale that determine what our skin color is going to be. And the cells that confer skin color for us sit here as well. And these guys, you may have heard about them before, are called melanocytes. Melanocytes. So melanocytes, and as you know, cytes again just means cell, but melano just indicates that there's a special pigment that's made in these cells that helps determine our skin color, and that pigment, as you may have guessed, is called melanin. Melanin. And the interesting thing about these cells or this pigment is that it's not the number of melanocytes that determine how dark your skin is. In fact, people with dark skin color and light skin color have the same number of melanocytes. It's actually melanin, the amount of melanin that you have, that determines how dark your skin color is, meaning that darker skinned people have more melanin. All right, so as we move up to our next layer over here, we see that our keratinocytes make it up here too, and we might start to notice some of this cytokeratin that's being produced here a little bit. And one of the unique features about this next layer is that we have this little connection that's starting to be generated in between our keratinocytes. This guy is called a desmosome. A desmosome. And this is involved in what gives this layer its name. So this layer that sits above the stratum basale is called the stratum spinosum. The stratum spinosum, which, as you might guess from the fact that we call this our basal layer, this stratum is our spiny layer. And the reason why we call it that is because of the desmosome. When we look at this layer of skin, sometimes underneath some microscopes where we have lost the moisture or the water that is in our cells, we'll have these shrunken cells that actually look like stars or kind of like spiny cells, very pointy shapes. And the reason why they're pointy is because they're still connected by these desmosomes, but they've lost the water. So that's why sometimes these layers look shriveled. So shriveled because they've lost the water, as well as spiny. And so that's how we remember the name of the stratum spinosum. Another type of cell that sits in this layer is an immune cell that is looking for foreign bodies or pathogens or things that can be destructive to our body, like bacteria and fungi, and eat them. These are called Langerhans cells. Langerhans cells. And as you may have guessed, these are part of our immune system. So they hang out here, but can definitely travel to other layers. We talk about them more in our dedicated immune system tutorial. All right. And so it's onward and upward to our next layer that's here. This more superficial layer is called the stratum granulosum. The stratum granulosum, which just means the granular layer. And the reason why we call it this is because the keratinocytes that sit here, now in addition to the desmosomes that we talked about from the spiny layer, have a tremendous amount of granules that are being produced here. And these granules are very apparent when we look at them under a microscope. These granules are called keratohyalin granules. So keratin hyalin granules. And I know what you might be thinking. So does this mean we're making a whole bunch more keratin in this layer? Well, we are, but these granules don't actually house keratin or the cytokeratin we talked about. They hold a whole bunch of other proteins that help handle our keratin. Just know that these granules make proteins that are best remembered as your keratin handling proteins. So your keratohyalin granules make your keratin handling proteins because they move your cytokeratin around in the cell. The other thing the stratum granulosum does is that it releases these things that are called lamellar bodies. And these lamellar bodies contain a whole bunch of lipids that then come together and form a strong lipid layer that sits at the top of our skin. This lipid layer is impermeable. It gives the skin its watertight capabilities that prevent foreign pathogens from making their way down deeper into our skin and eventually into our bloodstream. And so from there, we go to our next layer up to the stratum lucidum. The stratum lucidum. And sure enough, this is our lucid layer, or our clear. I'll write that here. This is our clear layer. And the way I think about it is that in the stratum granulosum, our keratinocytes worked so hard to make these keratohyalin granules and release these lamellar bodies that they actually died by the time they make it up to the stratum lucidum. So these cells that we have here, these keratinocytes, are actually dead. These are zombie keratinocytes. And they look that way on microscope because they've lost their nuclei or other organelles that usually gave them the color we saw at our earlier, more alive layers. And so as a result, these layers will not have these granules or nuclei or organelles that we see in the previous layers. Instead, they're going to be far clearer or more see-through than what we saw earlier. And that's an important note to make off to the side. The stratum granulosum has lost their nuclei and organelles, which are usually supposed to give our cells color when we look at them under a microscope. And this trend continues when we move on to our topmost layer here. This is the stratum corneum. The stratum corneum, our topmost layer of the epidermis of our skin entirely. And the way I think about this is that this is the coroner's layer, the coroner. And as you know, the coroner's office is where dead bodies go for autopsies. And so this is also a layer of dead skin. And one of the key characteristics of the stratum corneum is that we'll have stacked layers of our keratinocytes, our dead keratinocytes. And we can have up to 15 to 20 stacked layers of these flat, simple squamous epithelial cells. So I'll write that off over here. We can have about 15 to 20 layers of our keratinocytes. Again, they're still dead because they died in the stratum lucidum. And because this is our topmost layer, we'll see that these cells will randomly as well as continuously slough off. So they will randomly and continuously slough off or leave or fall off. And that makes way for newer cells underneath or newer keratinocytes to make their way up to the top. Another interesting thing about this layer is that reptiles, I'll write this in like a reptile green. So reptiles will molt this layer or shed this layer off in one piece. And so that's why you'll see like snake skin that comes off as a single intact covering to the snake. So they molt off the entire stratum corneum, which is very interesting and also very gross. All right, so those are all your layers of your epidermis, all 5 of them.
Okay, so in this video, you can see in the basal layer, we have the keratinocytes, which is the cell that is 95% of the 5 layer of skin. This is the 5 layer of skin, your stratum corneum, stratum lucidum, stratum granulosusum, stratum spinosum, and stratum germinativum. Okay? Stratum germinativum, which is called the basal layer. Okay, the basal layer. Now the basal layer is called the growth layer. So the keratinocytes splits into half and goes up. Okay, so new cells, skin cells grow here. The melanocytes.
The top 2 being dead.
You see here?
And these
the melanocytes.
Deeper 3.
So the melanocytes, it's also here. So in your basal layer, you will find 2 kinds of cells. Keratinocytes, which is the skin cell. Melanocytes, which is the cell that produces pigment. Okay, keratinocytes 就是皮肤细胞. Okay, and then melanocytes, where is it? Melanocytes 就是黑色素细胞. Okay, so melanocytes produces melanin. Okay, so you determine your skin color. Okay, and one more cell that is in here is the Maka cells. The Maka cells is your nerve receptacle. Okay, so there's 3 different kinds of cells found in your stratum germinativum. Okay, 3 kinds. Now, this one, when it splits into 2, it moves up. Okay, the skin, your skin, when they grow, they move up. They move up. up to the top layer. Okay, that's how they go up. Okay, the very top layer, which is your stratum corneum. The stratum corneum, the entire stratum corneum are dead skin. 你的表皮层的第一层全部都是死皮。Your dead skin has 15 to 20 layers. Okay, 死皮有15到20层。表皮层的第一层有15到20层死皮。That's why when we see our face, our face sometimes you see skin falling off. Those are dead skin. 有时候你在你的脸上面，你看到你脱皮，那些都是死皮，是从你的表皮层的第一层 stratum corneum. So the dead skin is all in the stratum corneum. Okay? Slough off means fall off, peel off. Slough off 的意思就是脱皮。Okay? So the stratum corneum, also known as the horny layer, it's the outermost layer of your epidermis. Okay, the stratum corneum is a very thin, waterproof, permeable, regenerates itself, detoxifies the body, and responds to stimuli. Keratinocytes on the surface harden into corneocytes, which is the protective cells. So this layer of cells that form the dead skin, okay, it's called corneocytes. Okay, 这些死皮细胞叫做 corneocytes. Okay, which is corneums, that's why it's called corneocytes. Okay, they're waterproof. Okay, 防水. Okay, these dead protein cells dry out and lack nuclei. Okay, that means they're already dead. That's why they don't have a nuclei. Okay, so this layer is referred to as the horny layer because of the scale-like cells. Okay, scale-like cells, like crocodile and snake. The skin is dry. That's why it's called scale-like cell. Okay, now keratinocytes continue to shed from the skin. It's a process called desquamation. 脱死皮叫做 desquamation. So that means when dead skin fall off, okay, from your top layer of skin, it's called desquamation. So continuously shed from the skin is called desquamation. These cells are replaced by new cells coming to the surface of the lower stratum. You can see, right? Because new cells produced here, it move up to here. That's why by the time it travels up to here, it's already dead. Okay, so this process of desquamation and replacement is called cell turnover. 当新的皮肤取代旧的皮肤，这个叫做 cell turnover. So when the new skin takes over the old skin because the old skin falls off, this is called cell turnover. The average adult cell turnover is 28 days, depending on the person's age. So the cell turnover slows down with age. That means for a new layer of skin to move up to the top layer, it takes 28 days. Okay, 就是说如一个新的皮肤组织在这边生长之后，它需要28天去到上面。Okay, that's why we say it takes 28 days for a new layer of cell to travel up to the top. Or we can just tell the customer we have a new layer of cells growing every 28 days. Actually, we have new layer of cells growing every day. Okay, every day we have new layer of cells growing, but it takes 28 days to travel up to the top layer. Okay, 我们每天都有新的细胞皮肤细胞重生，那这个细胞重生只是它需要28天从最底层 一直推到上第一层。所以为什么第一层我们需要去死皮 ？OK， 就是因为新的细胞组织要上来，所以我们必须要去掉旧死皮。So that's why we need to do exfoliation. Exfoliation means removal of dead skin for facial. It's because new skin cells are traveling up. That's why we ask people to do facial once a month. It's because every 28 days is almost once a month. So when you do facial once a month, you're actually removing dead skin for the customer. So the customer's skin will look fresh and renewed. 所以为什么1个月一次我们叫客人来做 facial， 就是因为我们知道要28天那个新皮肤组织才可以上来这边死的皮肤，所以我们必须要把那些旧的死皮弄掉，然后那个皮肤才会看起来好像更新这样子 ，OK， 比较好看 ，OK。Because if you don't remove the dead cells, your skin will look dull. Okay? 如果你不把死皮去掉的话，就是这1-2层。When we do facial, we only remove about 1 to 2 layers only. 我们做 facial 的时候，我们做那个peel 的时候，我们只去掉1-2层死皮而已。可是起码你去掉的时候，你的皮肤就不会好像暗淡，而且它会比较暖。When you do exfoliation,removing the dead skin, like 1 to 2 layers, your skin will look fresher and also softer. Okay? Now, cells and oil combine to form a protective barrier layer of the strontium conium, the eximental. So the strontium conium cells are surrounded by layers of oil and water. So lipids of the cell membrane, such as phospholipids and essential fatty acids, determine the health of a protective layer. So here on top here is your acid mantle. 这个第一层的上面有一层就是你的保护膜，叫做 acid mantle. OK， 这 acid mantle 就是水啊、油啊。OK， so it's water, water, oil that protects your skin. OK, right on top is your acid mantle. Now, the strontium conium has 15 to 20 layers of dead cells. Okay, so the keratinocytes on the surface of your are called squamous cells. So these cells here on top are called squamous cells. 你的表皮层第一层的这个死的细胞叫做coniocytes， 也叫做squamous cells. Why squamous cells? Is because they look like square. Okay, squamous cells. Okay, squamous cells 也叫做
鳞状细胞。
Okay, so squamous cells, they look like this. This is your squamous cells under the microscope. See, they look like square. 它们很像四方形，所以它们叫做 squamous cells. Square 就是四方形，这是那个 microscope 底层看到的。OK， 你看到它们好像四方形 square. They look a lot like square. That's why they're called squamous cells. Or if you look at the okay, they look like square squamous cells. Squamous cells. Okay, the cells come in different shape. There's columnar cells, squamous cells. So you see, because they look like cells, so that's the squamous cell. That's your first layer. 你的表皮层的第一层 the 15 to 20 layers of cells. See, 15 to 20 layers of cells, that's the squamous cells. Okay, so that's your strontium conium. Okay, then followed by the second layer, the strontium lucidum. Okay, so your second layer, 1, 2, second layer is a lucidum. It's clear cells. Why is it clear? because it's already dead too. 你的第二层的细胞也已经将死的细胞，所以它变成透明。Okay, that's why it's called clear layer. Is because it's also dead cells, but it becomes clear. It hasn't dried up yet. 它还没有干掉，第一层已经就是干掉死皮了，这个还没有干掉，所以它为什么会透明 ？Because it hasn't dried up totally. That's why it's still clear. Okay, it becomes clear. Okay, so the strontium lucidum is a thin, clear layer of dead skin. Under the strontium conium, it is a translucent layer made out of small cells that let light pass through. And this layer is the thickest on the palms of your hand, okay, and the soles of your feet. So this second layer on your hand, or palm of your hand, you can see here. Why is it so thick? It's because this strontium lucidum on your palm is very thick. Okay, it's the thickest. Okay, this layer is the thickest on the palm of the hand. So 这第二层在我们的手板跟脚底板是最厚的。Okay, that's why you can see our palm. You can see that it's a little bit clear. 所以你看我们为什么我的掌心有一点透明，就是因为这是第二层在我们的掌心是最厚的。That's why you look at the palm is a little bit like clear. It's because it's this lucidum on our palm is the thickest. Okay, that's why it looks a little bit clear. Now, the keratinocytes in this layer contain clear keratin. So these cells here release lipids, okay, to forming the bilayers of oil and water. The thicker the skin on the palm, the sole is composed of epidermal ridges that provide a better grip while walking and using the hands. You can see on our hand here, 你看我们的掌心很多纹条. Okay, you can see a lot of lines on our palm. Can you see closely? A lot of lines. Why a lot of lines? So when we hold something, it will not fall. Okay, it gives us a better grip. 为什么有纹条？纹条能帮我们握住东西，不会容易掉下来。Okay, so that's why we have a lot of lines on our palms. Okay, so that's called the ridges. Okay, 就是纹条。Okay, so this layer also form fingerprints and footprint. 我们的指纹 ，OK， 就是从这第二层造成的。That's why our fingerprint is big. You can see here. Why is okay? The fingerprint is because of this layer. Because of the ridges, the epidermal ridges that forms our fingerprint and footprint. So that's because of the strontium lucidum. So 我们的指纹是从第二层表皮层的第二层造成的。So our fingerprint is made out from the second layer of the epidermis. Okay? Now the third layer, strontium granulosum. Strontium granulosum is also called the granular layer. Why is it called granular layer? It's because the cells looks like grain. Okay? Let me show you a picture. This is your granular cells. It looks like grain. 看到吗？好像沙粒。Grain 的意思就好像我们的那些米的豆类啊，那些叫做 grain， 因为它好像沙粒。See, it looks like sand. It looks like grains. That's why it's called the granular cells. Okay, the granular cells is because you see the cells looks like grain. 因为那个细胞很像沙粒豆豆，所以第三层你可以看到 granular cells 豆豆。Okay, this is your third layer. Okay, that's why it's called strontium granulosum. Because this is a granular layer, because the cells looks like grains. Okay, now the production of keratin and intercellular lipids also take place here. Okay, This layer enzyme dissolves the structure, the demosomes, that holds the cells together. As these cells become characterized, they move to the surface and replace the cells that extract from the conium. Now, this word demosomes, okay, demosomes, this is demosomes. Demosomes, it's the thing that sticks the cell together, okay, the bond, it's the bond. When it moves up, when the skin moves up to this layer, the demosomes disappears. Okay, so 这个是把细胞给连接在一起的，它是 OK 叫 demosome。可是当它去到第3层的时候，这个 demosomes 就会被那个 enzyme 酵素就会被酵素融化，然后那些细胞就开始分化。Okay, so the third layer is where the enzyme will dissolve the demosomes that holds the cell together. So the cells becomes characterized and they move to the top. 所以当它到了第3层的时候，它把那个 demosome 给融化了，所以细胞去到第2层的时候，它就开始死掉了，因为它们分开了。Okay? That's why when the cell from the third layer moves up to the second layer, they start to die. It's because the demosomes separate the cells. Okay? The cells no longer stick together. Now, then we have this third layer, 第3层, is also where triglycerides, ceramides, waxes, fatty acids, and other intercellular lipids are made here and are excreted from the cells to form components of the skin waterproofing function of the top layer. Okay, so all this are made on the third layer. 这些 okay, intercellular lipids 叫做 intercellular lipids. So these are all called intercellular lipids, which is produced by the cells from the third layer. Okay, they produce all this so that it can make our skin waterproof. 这第3层那个细胞呢，会出产这些叫 intercellular lipid 这些东西。Intercellular lipid 就是这些东西 ，OK？ Intercellular lipid
细胞间脂质
，OK？ 细胞间脂质 ，OK？ 这些都是细胞间脂质 ，OK？ All this triglycerides, ceramides, waxes, fatty acids, okay, are all intercellular lipids, are all made here, okay? So the layer produces all this. OK， 第3层出产这些东西 ，OK， 从那个细胞出产，所以我们的皮肤为什么会防水，就是因为这第3层这些东西都帮助我们防水。All this that is produced on the third layer of cell makes our skin waterproof. That's why when you take shower, water will not get into your skin. Our skin is waterproof is because of all these things that is produced by the third layer of cells. Okay? Now, this water-soluble component referred to as moisturizing factor, natural moisturizing factor, NMF. It hydrates the lipid layer surrounding the cells, absorbs water, and prevents water loss. So this is also the layer that absorbs water. Okay? 这个第3层也是那个细胞是吸收水分滋润我们的皮肤的 Okay, so the third layer is the layer that absorbs water, okay, and prevents water loss, and 而且防止失去水分是第3层 Okay, that's why when you put in moisturizer that hydrates your skin, the moisturizer must travel down to the third layer so that the cell can absorb the water. and hydrate the skin. Okay, and prevent the skin from losing water. 所以你查什么润肤膏是保湿的那些润肤膏，它的东西都必须要去到第3层，那个细胞才可以把那个水分给吸收，然后保持那个皮肤不会失去水分。Okay, so far okay? Okay? Not okay? Okay? 明白吗 so far? Good. Okay, now the 4th layer, 第4层 Strontium spinosum. The strontium spinosum is also called the spiny layer. Why is it called the spiny layer? It's because the cell looks like spiny. Okay, looks spiny. Okay, I'll show you a picture of the spiny layer cells. Okay, this is your strontium spinosum. You can see the spine. See here, it looks spiny. 这是你第4层的细胞，你看到它细胞很像刺 ，OK， 很像刺，所以它叫做 spiny。spiny 的意思是就是刺 ，spines 就是刺。Okay, you can see it looks like spines. Okay, that's why it's called the spiny layer. Okay, the strontium spinosum is the spiny layer because the cells look like they have spines. Okay. Now, the strontium spinosum has 8 to 10 layers, okay, with demosomes, which is the spiny under microscope, is rich in RNA. That's why you can see this spine, all this spine, 这些刺, this is the demosomes, okay? This spine here, this is the one that sticks the cells together. 你看到这些好像刺吗？它就是把细胞联合起来。That's why the cells bond to each other. They stick to each other. 细胞连接在一起，就是因为这个 demosomes. The cells stick together is because of this thing that sticks them together. The spiny thing is called demosomes. Okay? Demosomes. This one, demosomes. Okay? This is the spiny thing. Okay? And you can see inside the cell, the dot, that's the nuclei and the melanin. 你可以看到细胞里面有那个它的那个细胞的心脏叫nuclei， 还有其他那些点呢，就是你的那个色素系。Okay? Now, so the spiny layer is because of the spine. Okay, so it's this cell continues to divide and change shape, and the enzyme are creating lipids and proteins. Cell appendages, which represent pricky spine, are demosomes. Okay, the intercellular structure that assists in strengthening and holding the cells together. So demosomes are keratin filaments that protein bonds that create the junction between the cells. Okay, that's why the cells stick together. It's because of the demosomes. You can see the cells all stick together because of this. This spiny thing is the demosomes. Okay, so this strengthens the epidermis and assists in intercellular communication. Okay, so also found here are the Langerhans immune cells. The Langerhans immune cells is your immune cells that help to destroy foreign invaders. And then keratinocytes and melanocytes work in synergy, forming the even placement of pigment granules. So the spinosum is the largest layer of the epidermis. Okay, what does it mean? That means out of this 4 layer, this layer is the largest layer. 表皮层的5层，这第4层是最大组织。Okay, 表皮层最大组织就是最大层。Okay, biggest layer is the spinosum layer. Okay, and the Langerhans cell, which is your immune system, is found here. Okay, 那个你的免疫系统的那个细胞是在这第4层找到的 Langerhans 叫做 Langerhans okay your Langerhans cells okay Langerhans cells is the one that protects the body from infection 保护我们的皮肤有感染 okay now the last layer stratum genitivum also known as the basal cell layer okay it's right at the bottom of your 5th layer 表皮层的最底层就是这个 stratum genitivum 或者叫做 basal cell layer basal 就是底 okay because basal comes from the word base okay the word base 底层 base 的意思是底层所以叫做 basal cell layer 最底层 okay so the basal cell layer is where new skin cells are produced okay 这个最底层呢就是新的皮肤细胞重生就在第5层 okay so you can see here the stratum genitivum is where everything starts to germinate germinates basal means the base layer so 所以这个就是皮肤重生生长就在第5层 so the basal layer is where all new cells grow okay that's your basal layer okay you can see here your basal layer okay you can see here the basal layer the cell starts to split into 2 okay 你可以看到这个 basal layer 就是第一层它从一个细胞它慢慢的变成分散变成2个细胞 okay that's your basal layer you still remember right in chapter 6 mitosis where one cell becomes 2 cells it happens here in the basal layer 你们还记得我们在那个 chapter 6的时候那个细胞分 remember this chapter 6 okay one cell 一个细胞 become 2 cells yeah so same thing so this happens
into
2 cells so this happens in the basal layer you can see here one cell becomes 2 cells see it's splitting like this 2 cells it's splitting into 2 cells so that's the 5th layer of your skin okay the basal layer so 1 2 3 4 5 okay the 5th layer it's where the cells grow new cells okay so 第5层就是你的细胞分成两个组2个 okay now so the cell division is called mitosis okay 这个细胞分组织叫做mitosis okay 一个细胞变成2个细胞这个过程叫做 mitosis okay so mitosis is the cell division okay stem cells so this kind of cells are called stem cells means the mother cells divide into daughter cell 这个细胞分成2个细胞这个细胞叫做 stem cells okay stem cell 就是主要的母细胞 okay now the mother cells divide to form 2 daughter cells 所以一个细胞母细胞叫做 stem cell 当它分成了呢它就变成2个女儿 okay 我们叫 daughter cells okay so some stem cells and daughter cells always remain undifferentiated and keep dividing okay over self-renewal over a lifetime so this either remains stem cell or are programmed to become something else such as keratinocytes in the body some daughter cells goes on to become skin cells so other cells become glands follicles tissues or organs so daughter cells are not able to divide anymore are now programmed to end one specific type of cells this is known as the terminal differentiation Okay, 那个细胞呢 that means what? The cell will keep renewing until a certain time they stop renewing. Then that's called terminal. That means they stop. Okay? 那个细胞会一直分到有一段时间之后，它终止了，终止不再分了。OK， 就变成死细胞的话，它叫做 terminal 就是终止。Okay, so cells such as keratinocytes begin the journey of terminal differentiation as they migrate to the surface and eventually become strong and protective. Okay, so 那些终止了之后呢，它就慢慢从底层上到上面。Okay, so those cells that stop renewing, they will move up and form new layers of skin up onto the top layer. Okay? Now, cells in the basal layer also produce the necessary lipids that form membranes and hold the cells together. Marker cells, which is your sensory cells, are touch receptors also located in the basal layer. Okay? The stratum genitivum also contains melanocytes, which is a cell that produce pigments, which is the melanin. Okay, now the pigment carrying the granules are called melanosomes, then produce a complex protein called melanin. So that means what? Melanocyte is the cell. The melanocytes contains melanosomes, which produces melanin. Do you understand? Let me just translate it for you. Melanocytes whose microphone is it? Please turn off. Okay, melanocytes is the cell. Okay, 黑色素细胞。Okay, melanosomes 把你的 melanosomes 是黑素体。Okay,
melanosomes.
Okay, 是黑素体。And then melanin. Okay, so don't get confused. Hey, whose microphone please turn off? 你们谁的 microphone 打开了，把它关掉。Turn off your microphone, please. Turn off your microphone, please. Okay, so the cell, it's called melanocytes. Okay, and then it contains melanosomes, which produces melanin. Okay, 黑色素细胞里面有黑素体出产黑素色，明白吗？ Okay, so let me show you melanosomes. I'm going to show you a video, okay?
Skin covers all our bodies, but its color varies from person to person. To understand why, we need to peer inside its layers. Skin cells and their allies, hair, sweat, and oil glands, form a first line of defense from the environment. Skin's three main layers are each a distinct community of cells with different jobs. To see what gives skin its color, we need to focus on the outermost layer, the epidermis, and two important cell types, keratinocytes and melanocytes. The keratinocytes are the cells that form the surface of the skin and are on the front line for taking insults from the environment. Deeper down in the epidermis, right at the base of the layer, we find the melanocytes. These star-shaped cells produce the important pigment melanin. Let's zoom inside a melanocyte to see how this works. Melanin is produced inside what look like spheres throughout the melanocyte. These are the melanosomes. Chemical reactions inside melanosomes turn the amino acid tyrosine into melanin. The proportion of two main forms of melanin produced, a reddish-yellow type versus a black-brown type, the total amount of melanin in each melanosome, and the number of melanosomes in the epidermis all vary from person to person and determine their skin color. Melanosomes are the melanin factories inside melanocytes. But for melanin to do its job, melanosomes need to be transported to the keratinocytes via the melanocytes' long projections. Inside the keratinocytes, some melanosomes form a cap around the cell nucleus. The melanin inside the melanosomes absorbs the ultraviolet energy from sunlight, reducing the amount of ultraviolet radiation that reaches the nucleus, and in particular, the DNA inside the nucleus. Ultraviolet radiation can cause mutations in DNA that can lead to cancer. When ultraviolet radiation increases, melanin production increases, and more melanosomes are delivered to keratinocytes. Most people can adjust to greater exposure to the sun.
This is the part I want to show you. See, this is the sunlight, the UV light. The more sun you have, the darker your skin becomes. That's why you get hyperpigmentation when you're exposed to too much sunlight. That's why the skin becomes darker with spots. Okay? Because your cell has melanosomes that protect your nucleus, but because of the UV ray, it damages your nucleus, the DNA in there, so it becomes skin cancer. But before that, you start to develop hypopigmentation. 所以你要知道为什么我们会有黑斑，就是因为晒太阳太多，这是少、中跟多。如果你过分的晒太阳的话，你的那个黑色素的细胞里面有那个黑素体，那个黑素体就会生长很多黑色素，所以你就变成很多斑，明白吗？ So, and because in your this melanocytes, it contains little things here called the melanosomes, which is like a factory that will produce melanin. When you are overexposed to the sunlight, the melanosomes inside the cell, the melanocyte cells, it starts to produce a lot of melanin. That's why you get pigmentation, okay? Brown spots on your face.
To greater exposure to the sun by turning up melanin production and tanning. But their genetic inheritance determines both the baseline color of their skin and how much it can tan.
Okay, so this is how we get tan or we get pigmentation. Okay, it's because of melanosomes producing a lot of melanin, because the melanin is supposed to protect our skin, but because you put too much sunlight, overexposure, that's why your skin starts to become darker or starts to have pigmentation, overdose of melanin. And as you can see earlier, I want to show you this. Where is it? On the video, you can see. Let me see here.
Let's zoom inside a melanocyte to see how this works. Melanin is produced inside what look like spheres throughout the melanocyte.
So this is the cell. 这个就是那个细胞. This is the cell, which is called melanocytes. Okay? This is the inside. 里面. 细胞的里面. Inside. Inside the melanocytes, you will see melanosomes. So all these are melanosomes. Okay? These melanosomes are like factory. 这个 melanocyte 就是细胞 ，OK， 那个黑色素细胞里面你会看到这个黑色体，这些黑色体就好像工厂，这些工厂会出产黑色素。So these melanocytes are like factories that produce melanin, okay?
These are the melanosomes.
So these are called the melanosomes.
Chemical reactions inside melanosomes turn the amino acid tyrosine into melanin.
Okay, this tyrosine is an amino acid. It gets absorbed through the melanosome and turns it into melanin. Okay, tyrosine. Okay, tyrosine is an amino acid. Tyrosine. Hold on. Tyrosine. Tyrosine is an amino acid. Okay, tyrosine is an amino acid.
酪氨酸是一种氨基酸。
Okay, so it changes tyrosine into melanin. Okay, 所以这个肽氨酸是一种氨基酸，它被这个黑色体工厂把它转成为黑色素，明白吗 ？OK， 这整个是你的黑色素细胞，黑色素细胞里面有这个 melanosome， 这些都是 melanosome， 就是工厂，就是黑色体，这些黑色体就会把这个氨基酸叫做
酪氨酸是一种氨基酸。
这个氨基酸叫做酪氨酸，把它经过这个工厂而变成黑色素。Okay, so inside this whole picture is actually your melanocytes, which is your pigment cell. And this inside your cell, you will see all these melanosomes. Okay, all these dot are the melanosomes. They are like factories that changes tyrosine, which is an amino acid. It changes it into melanin, which is your pigment of your skin color. Everyone understand? Okay? Yes? 明白吗？大家？梁英、真瑜，你们大家明白吗？哦 Okay, good. Okay, so melanin is the pigment that protects us from the sun. So that's why if too much sunlight, it can damage the DNA that is in our nuclei in the cells. So melanosomes carry the pigment granules and provide the skin color. So one melanocyte would deposit pigment-carrying melanosomes into 30 keratinocytes, through its dendrite. arms or cellular projection that branch out to interact with other cells in the extracellular matrix between cells. This process is how pigment darkening occurs. You can see here, this is your melanocytes. This little thing here, dendrite, is the signal. Okay, they send this is like a wire that sends signal to another cell. Communication. 这个叫做 dendrite， 是在这个黑色素的细胞这边，它这个就好像是一个通讯的那个 wire。OK， 通讯 OK， 所以他们细胞跟子细胞怎么去通讯呢？就是经过这个 dendrite。Okay, so this is for communication. So this is how cells communicate each other through dendrites. Okay, so they talk to each other. They send messages to each other through the dendrites. Okay, 细胞跟细胞之间的那个通讯就是经过这个 dendrite. Okay. So melanin is transferred into cells through dendrites and then move up the skin. Okay, so 而且那些黑色素也是从它这边经过，然后一直往上。Okay, now melanin production is stimulated by the exposure to sunlight. Already saw here. So tyrosinase is the enzyme that stimulates melanocytes and thus produces melanin. So it is estimated there's over 1,000 melanocytes per square mm of skin. Okay, so every 1 square mm of skin, there's 1,000 melanocytes, 1,000 pigment cells. Okay, now every person has approximately the same number of melanocytes. The difference is the genetic color due to the amount of melanin activated in the skin. Okay, so your skin color is determined by your genes and also the number of melanin that is found in your skin. 你的皮肤的颜色是因为你的基因，而且也是因为黑色素的问题，所以你才会越来越黑或者会有斑，就是因为太多黑色素。Individuals with darker skin and melanin have more activity in the melanocytes. Both internal and external factors affect the melanin activation and production. 皮肤越黑的人呢，他的黑色素越多。Okay, the body produces 2 types of melanin. One is called the pheomelanin. The other one is called the eumelanin. Okay, eumelanin. It's pronounced as eumelanin and pheomelanin. Okay, so there's 2 types. 有2种黑色素。The pheomelanin produces red to yellow color. Okay, pheomelanin 出产红色到黄色的黑色的色素。Eumelanin produces dark brown to black. Eumelanin 出产深褐色到黑色的色素。So people with light skin, okay, produces pheomelanin. Okay, so like people with like what? Blonde hair, white fair skin, or red hair people, they have pheomelanin, okay, in their body. Dark skin, black hair people, they have eumelanin in their body. All right, so fair skin individual has approximately 20 melanosomes per keratinocyte, and dark skin contains about 200 melanocytes per keratinocyte. Okay, what does it mean? That means if this is your keratinocytes, okay, which is your cell, okay, your skin cell, okay, this is your skin cell, keratinocytes. 这是你的 皮肤细胞叫做 keratinocytes. Okay, inside there is 20 melanosomes. If you are fair skin, 如果你是白人，你的皮肤细胞里面有20个黑色体。Okay, melanosome 20. But if you are dark skin, okay, you're this one, you have 200 melanosomes. 你有200个黑色体，就是说什么？因为白人嘛，他只有20个工厂来出产黑色素。皮肤黑的人，他有200个工厂来出产黑色素，所以为什么他比较黑？就是因为他有200个工厂 melanosomes. Why darker skin has dark? Because imagine if your melanosome is like a factory in a cell. This one only has 20 factories to produce melanin, but this one dark skin has 200 factories to produce melanin. Remember, melanin is the one that determines your skin color. That's why you become dark skin, because you have 200 factories. Okay? 所以为什么皮肤黑的人会更黑，是因为你越多这个 melanosomes 就好像工厂，它出的黑色素越多，所以呢它就比较黑啊，明白吗？ Okay? Okay? Okay. So, just remember, okay, pheomelanin produces melanin that is red to yellow. Emelanin produces melanin that is dark brown to black. 你要记住这个哈 pheomelanin 就是出产红到黄的色素 ，eomelanin 就是出产深褐色到黑色的色素。Okay? Light skin people 白人就有这个 pheomelanin. Okay? Light skin will have pheomelanin. Dark skin will produce emelanin. Okay? Okay, next one. Products that suppresses melanin production by interrupting the biochemical process are known as brightening agent. Okay? Some are called tyrannosinase inhibitors. Now, inhibitors means control, to control. Remember, this is the enzyme, tyrannosin. Tyrannosin is the enzyme, the amino acid that is being changed by melanism to melanin. So if you don't want to be darker, you need to put on brightening agent to stop this enzyme from producing. That's why it's called tyrosinase inhibitors. Okay? And this product also is designed to reduce hyperpigmentation. Okay? 所以有一些人如果他要漂白 OK 或者防止有黑斑，那怎么办呢？他就要查产品或者吃药叫做 tyrosinase inhibitors， 他们呢是防止这个出产，防止我们身体出产这个出产这个
酪氨酸是一种氨基酸
出产这个酪氨酸，因为这个工厂把酪氨酸变成黑色素嘛，所以如果你不要再黑的话，我们不可以有这个，因为这个就是那个原料造成黑色素。Okay, so to stop more melanin from being produced, we have to make sure our body doesn't produce tyrannosin. You're gonna by taking medication or putting in products on our skin that stops the production of tyrannosin. Okay? 明白吗？梁英 Okay? Everyone okay? Sushila, you understand? Okay, good. Now, so this is your 5 layers of skin. anyone has any question？ 这就是你的5层皮肤，有没有人有问题？
老师，如何就是让细胞就更新的快一点？吃什么可以让细胞
不可能快一点的？这是我们，你越老越慢。OK，
天，
从1岁，从 baby 到12岁，你的细胞重生是14天，从12岁到15岁吧，然后从16岁到30多岁，你的细胞重生是28天。当你到了50岁、45岁以上，你的细胞重生是从45天到80天。
天哪，太慢了。
Yes， 所以为什么我们越老，我们的皮肤就越糟糕，明白吗？就是因为我们的年龄，因为新陈代谢年龄就会慢下来。Okay, now the question she asked us is how can you speed up the skin from cell renewal? There's actually no way you can speed it up because this is our body mechanism. Okay, it's automatic. So 唯一一个办法呢，就是 protect your cells. 唯一一个办法就是保护你的细胞，怎么样呢？就是用产品来希望你的细胞不会这么快死掉，明白吗？不会这么快坏掉，所以你的皮肤才会好看，因为你的皮肤健康，你的细胞健康，明白吗？ 所以为什么我们会叫做护肤品？那个产品不是帮助你从那个细胞再生长多一点细胞，可是它会帮助你的细胞保持健康，所以你的皮肤才健康。因为我们有太多的外因的问题，譬如说太阳空气污染我们吃的不健康的食物我们那个生活什么睡不够或者压力才造成我们的皮肤不好。所以如果你可以把这些都给balance 的话，那你的皮肤就会很好，明白吗？So her question was, how do we speed up the cell reproduction? Sorry, there's no way you can speed up the cell reproduction. The best way is to keep your cells healthy by using products that penetrate into your skin to maintain the health of your skin. So when your skin is healthy, your skin will look good. Now, a lot of things can cause your cell to become not healthy. Like what? Your diet, the food you eat. Okay, the food you eat is not healthy. Your lifestyle, you have a lot of stress, you're not sleeping enough, or external factor like the sunlight or like the pollution. All this can cause your skin to become bad. So that's why we put on moisturizers, we take vitamins, and minerals, we eat healthy food, is hopefully our cells are healthy, so our skin will look healthy. Okay? 我们美容师的工作是帮助客人保持健康的皮肤，我们不能改造，我们只能维护，明白吗？ Our job as an esthetician is not to help the customer to turn their skin into new skin. There's no way we can turn their skin into new skin. The only way we can help them is to protect, okay, and also to make sure their skin is healthy. So our job is actually maintenance, okay? Our job is maintenance. Okay, we help our customer to maintain healthy skin. Okay?
老师还有问题，就是黑色素是保护皮肤不被太阳晒坏，是这样吧？
黑色素本身应该基本是应该是保护我们的皮肤从那个 UV ray， 可是因为我们如果不保护好我们自己的话，一直去晒太阳的话，因为那我们的身体就会收到那个 signal， 它就会一直出黑色素，所以我们就会变成越来越黑，明白吗？
对，
老师，您刚才那5层皮肤那个图片呢，在那个让我拍个照片吗？
没有，我发给你们了，我在微信发给你这个 website， 你们可以上去看，好吗？
好的，谢谢。
Okay, let's go for a break. Come back at 12:10. 我们现在去take break，12:10回来。So I'll see you guys at 12:10. Okay?